Hey there everybody, it's that Slasher Elijah, and I hope you all are doing well so far. I'm gonna ask you all a question, and I want you all to really think about it here. As fans of Dead by Daylight, I'm almost certain that every single one of you will have an answer. What was your first interaction with horror? For many, I think it's probably the classic slasher films, such as Friday the 13th or maybe Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And to a certain extent, I was the same way. I loved the classic Tales from the Crypt TV series and Goosebumps books growing up, but I think the one definitive piece of horror that really hooked me into the genre for sure was the Slender Man. For those of you who may not know, or are too young to have known, the Slender Man was an early internet creepypasta story about a tall, slender man, seen wearing a suit, having pale white skin, and a face devoid of all features. It may not seem scary at all to you now, but let me tell you straight. As an 8-year-old, playing Slender the 8 Pages on my dad's barely functioning Samsung tablet was enough to have me crying and covered in my own piss. So now, of course, that begs the question I'm sure you all are wondering. Does this grandfather of modern internet horror really hold a spot within the realm of Dead by Daylight? Ladies, gentlemen, and travelers in the fog alike, welcome to my Dead by Daylight series, Do They Belong?, where we take a look at characters and figure out whether or not they deserve a spot within the fog, or if they should be cast aside, never to set foot into the realm beyond. Now, here's the thing about Slender Man, is although he is beloved, I don't think he really has anything in the form of a power going for him that hasn't already been done by other killers better, but I'll get into this a little later on when discussing arguments for and against having this character in the fog. For right now, however, let's go ahead and get into who or what all is the Slender Man. On June 29th, 2009, a post was made to the Something Awful forum Photoshop thread for a contest asking users to create their own scary photographs. That's where Eric Knudsen, also known as Victor Surge, submits the following image with the caption, "We didn't want to go, we didn't want to kill them, but its persistent silence and outstretched arms horrified and comforted us at the same time. 1983, photographer unknown, presumed dead." Another photograph soon follows, and the caption continues. One of 2 recovered photographs from the Sterling City Library blaze, notable for being taken the day which 14 children vanished, and for what is referred to as the Slender Man. Deformities cited as film defects by officials. Fire at library occurred 1 week later. Actual photograph confiscated as evidence. 1986, photographer Mary Thomas, missing since June 13th, 1986. These are the official humble origins of the Slender Man. However, just from this post alone, the internet would soon run wild and integrate the Slender Man and his ever-changing mythos into the mainstream forever. From video games to online film series to one really terrible movie back in 2018, his influence was unmatched. As far as interpretations go, however, his depictions vary greatly. Physically, he still holds the tall, featureless, pale man in a suit appearance. However, in terms of its abilities, that's where we get a little convoluted. Sometimes he's just a harbinger of doom, while other times he just straight up impales people on trees. Whenever we get into the custom power concept for the Slender Man, I'll be going off of his appearance from the 2012 video game, Slender the 8 Pages. With all of that being said, let's go ahead and move on to why people are both for and against this character joining the fog. Grandfather of horror. I feel like it goes without saying, but Slender Man, he's been around for quite a while. I feel as though he's directly responsible for some people and their direct interest in the horror genre. He's fucking spooky. I might not be afraid of him now, but me and my little 8-year-old brain were terrified of this fucker. I think to some extent that fear could be revived when bringing him into Dead by Daylight. Unique type of horror. With the minor exception of maybe The Unknown, which, let's all be honest here, at best pays homage to the type of horror we're talking about, we've never really had a creepypasta killer or really any early internet horror represented in the game. Bringing in the Slender Man could very well give us a unique rep in horror. Argument against. 2014 incident. Alright, let's go ahead and get the obvious out of the way. If you're unaware, there was this huge incident back in 2014 where 2 girls attempted to kill their fellow classmate in hopes of appeasing the Slender Man. and the entire incident has more or less tainted the IP. I know my explanation of the events is pretty vague, so I would recommend you check out a documentary online called Beware the Slender Man, which goes over the event a lot more in depth. As an outsider looking in, I would consider it disrespectful to include the Slender Man license without getting the proper permission from the victim alongside their family's permission as well. Too similar to the unknown. I know this entry might seem a little silly at first, but before you comment anything, stop me if you've heard this one before. The new killer is a tall man-like being whose default appearance has it dressed in formal wear. The killer's power involves usage of tentacle-like appendages and teleporting all over the map. In terms of the killer's lore, it's said to have had some disruptive effect to electronic devices, and its origins are shrouded in mystery to the point of it being implemented in folklore. I know there are several huge differences between the Unknown and Slenderman. The Unknown has a face, Slenderman has no face. The two are completely different monsters. But I think what great similarities they do share is indisputable. Moving on, here is my fan-made power concept for the Slenderman. The new killer is the Slenderman. The Slenderman comes with a brand new ability. Cut off your prey as you give chase, and fill them with the paranoia of your never-ending presence with the arrival. Primary ability is always watching. While in chase with a survivor, the Slenderman will gain the ability to teleport within a contained radius around a survivor. Said radius will span 8 meters away from the survivor. Upon teleporting to the survivor being chased, the Slenderman will then be put into a 12-second cooldown, hindered for 2 seconds, and will give the survivor Slender Sickness. If a survivor hasn't gotten rid of their Slender Sickness before it fully progresses, the Slenderman will be able to teleport to their location regardless of if they're in chase or not. New effect, Slender Sickness. Any survivors afflicted with Slender Sickness will have their screen show static intermediately. As Slender Sickness progresses, so too does the length of time that the static blinds persist. It's prevalent that one would want to remove this sickness, as not doing so would allow the Slenderman to teleport to you, regardless of if you're in chase or not. Survivors can remove the Slender Sickness by heading to the new killer item, Rotten Stumps. New killer item, Rotten Stumps. Several rotten tree stumps will spawn across the map, with blank paper pages and drawing utensils atop them. If a survivor is afflicted with Slender Sickness, the nearest available stump will be highlighted to them. The survivor will walk up to the stump and enact in a 10-second animation, showing them scribbling on 4 different pages before Slender Sickness is finally removed. After a survivor scribbles out the 4 pages, they will then sit in a floating animation above the rotten stump, which now becomes unavailable to all survivors. The Slenderman, however, can collect these pages. Upon collecting pages from at least 2 rotten stumps, the Slenderman will activate secondary ability, Fear of the Operator. Secondary ability, Fear of the Operator. As before previously mentioned, upon interacting with 2 rotten tree stumps and collecting a total of 8 pages as the Slenderman, Fear of the Operator will activate. For the next 60 seconds, the Slenderman will increase in height, allowing him to see over tiles. With this increased height, the Slenderman also gains a slight increase in movement speed to coincide with his now long strides. Any survivor looking at the Slenderman during this period will have static fill their screen. This is just a fan-made concept by me. It's not like this is insider information over a future killer power or really anything like that. But with all of that being said, let's go ahead and move on to my verdict on whether or not the Slender Man belongs in Dead by Daylight. Slender Man has had a very near and dear place in many hearts. I know I've already said it multiple times already, but in my opinion, he truly is the grandfather of early internet horror. Whenever I started on this video, I had asked another content creator who's very in favor of having Slender as a killer their direct opinions, and really just a sound argument as to why they should be included in the game. This response comes from Slender Killer. You may know them as a pretty prominent xenomorph specialist, but also the creator of the notorious Prestige 100 website, and I think their response reflects most of my thoughts pretty clearly. Well, it's hard to answer, because Slender on its own inspired a whole horror subgenre, or made it famous, creepypasta, while it could also fit analog horror. The character is also up to anyone's own interpretation. Not as far as the unknown goes, however, I do believe he inspired him a bit. Just take a look at all the games, fan-made media, movies, animation. Everyone can depict Slender in some way or another. That also gives a very large creative field for DBD, as they could adapt his power in a lot of different ways. Doctor Madness, page killer props like Sadako's TVs, teleport like Unknown. You could do almost anything. They also know how the rights work, which is, in my opinion, the biggest obstacle to a horror figure joining the Fog. There is no doubt in my mind that Slender could work as killer. But to quote Jurassic Park, we're preoccupied wondering if we could. We didn't stop to think on whether or not we should. At the end of the day, there was a stabbing, and while I think the root of that event isn't inherently caused by the Slender Man, and more so mental illness, it still tainted the IP regardless. I think Slender Man, under the caveat that all parties have given their express permission and are comfortable with Slender Man being included in more IP, absolutely could deserve a spot within the Fog, but at the end of the day, we'll just have to sit back and see what happens. Thank you all so much for watching. Your all's continued support truly does mean a lot. I know I'm not a huge content creator by any means, but I just want to point out that we are so very close to 1,000 subscribers. If for whatever reason you haven't already, I ask that you please at least consider subscribing, as it means a lot and helps me out directly in the algorithm. I also have a public Discord server available if you all would like to join that. There will be a link featured down in the description down below. At the end of the day, be like the unknown. Do not deny yourself your happiness. After all, life is what we make it. Have a good one, y'all.